All right, guys. Well, why don't we get started? My name is James Rupe. I'm the blockchain educator here. I run a company called Cardano Mint, and I've been researching and developing on blockchain for about 12 years. I run private servers at home, and I teach people how to build infrastructure, blockchain infrastructure in their home so that they can take their own value and generate value with it without a third party. And I've been doing this for 7 years. It's how I make my living. It's how I live. So I don't work anymore. I'm retired. I retired at 45. And I've been doing this system, and this system is proving to only get stronger. It's actually growing. I'm getting wealthier every month. And so I want to start to come out, and I joined with Tech Alley about 4 years ago to teach this, because this is not new. This has been going on for about 7 years. I figured it out about 4 years ago. And I've been going forward, and everything is getting more and more valuable. And I can start to see more of the economy, more of the environment, more of the government migrate in this direction. And so it's probably wise to start looking at and evaluating blockchain and the technology to see how it can integrate in our future, understand the value proposition of that technology, but most importantly, understanding the value will directly correlate with how we are to use it. If we don't understand why it's valuable or what it is, anybody can throw anything out there at us, and we're going to say, oh, it's blockchain, gimme. And that's actually a detrimental error. So first I'm going to start with the intros like that. We'll talk about the value preservation. I'm James. I teach blockchain tech. My hobbies are I build private AIs. I love AI. I think it's awesome. I do biohacking. I believe that our life is very valuable. We should be as healthy and strong as we can. I also do blockchain because I believe in money freedom, and I believe in freedom and people having a voice over government. And so I kind of hobby the things that I enjoy. I enjoy health, I enjoy tech, and so I spend my time in those arenas most of the time. And my newest hobby is 3D printing. I bought a couple 3D printers, and so I have a little 3D printer farm. I joined a local company called Intagly, and so I monetize those, and I get those guys working. It's actually quite fun. I do a lot of cool things with printers. So now that I've introduced myself, and you guys know why you're here, just give me a couple little tidbits about you guys.
So I'm Ahmad. I've been working in finance for the last 10 years. I do a little bit of personal training on the side, but I'm learning crypto and different things like that because I know like the blockchain technology seems like it's going to be the future, and I was really surprised with all of the different applications that you can build on top of it. So I wanted to learn more about it so I can do some entrepreneurial stuff.
Very cool, man. I'm glad you're here. There's a great reason to be here. Yeah.
So, my name is Chris Pena, software solution architect. I'm interested in blockchain because I like the technology. Because basically, you can say, from what I understand, you can say, hey, I'm giving you something on the software from a software standpoint, and here's my here's where it's gone, right? Who owns it?
Right.
You can't change anything about its past, right?
Right.
So I'm interested from a technological standpoint of like how I might be able to use it.
Okay.
And understand like how it might be applied in different situations other than crypto, right?
Yes.
Because I think about blockchain as a different technology stack or implementation of a specific object or something versus what crypto mining is, which is like it's the same thing, right? I understand where I came from, my prominence, but you have to solve the math, whatever it is, to expand the block.
Right, to create a block. So, yeah, let's get the understanding of the platform, okay? Because once we understand the stack, then we can understand how things work. So, the layer one stack would be the blockchain network itself, and that would be the component that processes the transactions. Okay, that's the layer one stack. Now, what can live on that stack varies. Now, Bitcoin is an example of a token that can exchange value that lives on a blockchain stack written in the UTXO C++ standard. That's Bitcoin, right? And so we can build things on there, and with Bitcoin, the way it was written, we can build a token, but we can't really program that token because of the way that it was made. And so we have something very unique. We have a fixed supply encrypted data store that can't be corrupted, deleted, or controlled by any government. So there's a value here. This is interesting. So what? We have a value store. We have other value stores. We have gold, right? But the problem is gold 100 years ago was a great value store. But let's be honest. How often are we hopping in our wagons to deliver data anymore? we're not physically delivering data anymore. We're digitally transferring data all over the world. And so gold, 100 years ago, where everything was physical and we're dropping physical data, or we're calling saying, hey, yeah, this money's here, we got the money for you, it's fine. These trust mechanisms that we built in, these confirmation mechanisms, they're failing. And so we're migrating from trust to confirmation. And these networks are proving to be a trustless way to exchange data without a third party. And that's the magic. And so you ask about the utility, I'll tell you the utility. You want to run with something huge right now? UNLV has a problem. Jamie Schwartz from Blackfire told me. She runs a nonprofit associated with Caesar's Palace and UNLV. It's a sponsored thing. It's a 6-story building, and they innovate. They just do innovation. And so they're constantly taking innovators, people that are interested in coming in, and they're also taking people that want to parallel their degrees and keep going with UNLV, like transfers. She said one of the biggest problems UNLV has is fake credential submissions. People are claiming they have doctorates, they're claiming they have masters. I was shocked. That's exactly what I said. I said, really? Like, how do they think they're going to get away with it? They said, well, the stack is so big, it's really impossible to confirm all of them. We do, but it takes a long time or things get missed. And I said, what if, and here's your utility idea, what if you took a blockchain network and had a university like UNLV create a policy ID project, date it for that year 2025, and issue all the graduation certificates off that policy ID. Next year, new policy ID, 2026, all the graduation certificates. Everybody gets an NFT for their graduation. They go into an employer, scan it, it flexes right off of UNLV's website, confirmed credentials.
Yeah.
This can be done right now. Atala Prism has the infrastructure built, just people haven't discovered it to touch it yet.
Yeah.
But that is something, that's a utility of blockchain. It is a valuable credential, something you earned, and this is a proof that is verified by the institution instantly because of the tech. Now parallel this into just about every validation aspect. Driver's license, passport, obviously value, medical records, family data. All of these things.
Delivering of software.
What's that?
You can use it to assign your software as well.
Absolutely.
So if I generate an application, right, and it has an executable, I give that application to you, and you say, hey, how do I know this came from you? There you go.
Exactly.
Right there.
Right.
Because you have a hash on it, which confirms you, right? Your identity. And so I've been looking, so you guys are beyond the value prop. Do you guys understand the value prop of Bitcoin? Okay, so we're gonna skip it. I've got some other decks. So fortunately, I've been researching this stuff for so long. Return to library. I don't have one deck. I have tons. And so, yeah. So we can go over anything. We can talk about the SHA-256 hash encryption. We can do the comparisons. We can talk about self-custody. Talk about wallets. Let's see if there's something that techie guys can get into. History and evolution. Most of this stuff is to kind of introduce people to the concepts and ideas, because there's a lot. I've been researching this for like over 10 years. And so there's nuance. There's nuance in here, but the nuance is greatly, it's a huge cavern compared to the truth. And so you have to be careful that nuance doesn't carry you to the destination you don't want to be. You need to stay on the real values of what blockchain is. Now, that being said, do you guys know what was written on the first Bitcoin? Do you guys even know there's a message on the first Bitcoin?
No, tell me.
Nobody does. Okay, and that tells me how much research people are doing, because they don't know what's written on the first Bitcoin. Okay, so let's be honest. So I'm gonna hold up 4 fingers here. So an event happened, okay, that triggered the release of Bitcoin, an event in the world. A company, okay, went to our government to change the rules to make profits at the expense of the people, okay? A company went to our government to change the rules for profit to hurt the people. Okay, I want you guys to understand that, because this is the event that launched 1,000 ships. This is the event that triggered a revolution, a silent revolution, and the releasing of a free currency associated and tied to no government that was validatable across borders, that couldn't be debased and couldn't be taken from you. This event where a company change the rules with our government for profit to hurt people. So the message references on the first Bitcoin an article where the chancellor has approved bailouts for a bank. The bank was AIG. AIG was an insurance company that hold the insurance funds for the housing market. So AIG lobbied Congress to reduce the insurance requirement so they could write tons of loans for profit. And when they wrote all those loans, they wrote balloon loans, which matured after 5 years, that crashed the market and cost millions of Americans to lose their homes for profit.
Yeah.
The people were hurt. The business was bailed out. I had homes. I had lost a ton of money on homes.
You did.
I had 3 homes. So I lost $60,000 on each home at the time.
Wow.
I was 25 and I thought I was going to be a millionaire, and I had to start over when that happened. So,
At least you're 25.
yeah. So when that happened, I didn't understand the event. My brother did. He called me and he's like, sell your houses right now. And I said, what are you doing, man? I'm sitting on $300K on each house. I'm pretty much a millionaire at 25. I'm riding this thing out. I'm sorry, I can't sell. It's just too much. He sold his house, was renting when he called me. And he said, I can see these balloon payments are coming up due in 6 months, and they are the majority of paper that's written on all these loans. Somebody's crashing the market, and they've been planning it for 5 years. And I said, no, man, I don't know what you're saying. I don't understand this. They said, buy property, it'll recover. And then we got that housing market crash. I lost 2 out of the 3 homes, took a $120,000 bath, and barely hung on to my home because what did they do? They made you keep the same payment, but they reduced the principal.
Yeah.
And everybody was doing this half bullshit. And then what happened? The government just gave all the money back to the banks. This was an event where a company lobbied our government, changed the rules for profit, and hurt the people.
Yep.
This triggered Bitcoin. So what the fuck are we doing here with all these stupid meme coins and these distractions?
So, have you seen the movie, I don't know how true it is, but The Big Short?
Yeah,
The Big Short?
my brother was well aware of all this. Yeah, that is literally what happened. They didn't, I don't know if they did it on purpose to crash the market, but they did it on purpose for profits.
Yeah.
So if they're gonna manipulate the system to hurt the people, then that system must be stricken, because the whole system is supposed to do what? Support the people. At least when I was a young kid, that was the motto. The government was a servant to the people. Now it seems like the government is serving the people whatever they want, and
Yeah. We're getting into so.
it gets
I try to stay away from politics.
Right.
Because now we're getting into philosophies of how people live their lives. Right.
correct. Right.
And this, to me personally, I know how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not important to you.
Correct.
But your way is also valuable to you.
And should be honored and
And we
respected.
should all respect it.
Yep.
Right? And I 100% get where you're coming from. I wasn't smart enough to buy houses back then. And I didn't have any backing to do that either. Right? So I worked through the early 2000s making $20,000 a year as a student, all
Right.
the way till I was 30, right? And then I got my first career job. So
That's awesome.
living with 2 or 3 people at the same time.
It's hard. That's a falling economy. That's a falling economy due to inflation. So, I mean, we're all there. We're all kind of experiencing it. But when you step back and you do that 30,000-foot view, and then you start to research history, because I spent a lot of time researching 6,000 years of history, financial history. And so I started to realize these patterns over time. And you're right, it is kind of political, but freedom is political, let's be honest. There are people that would love to take it from us or at least control it. And so we do have to realize, this is an environment we have to be proactive with. We can't just sit there or we'll be like, just a lemming on a wall. And so if we have to be proactive, then how do we become a voice in this system that matters? And if we follow along how the world is evolving, if you had a farm 100 years ago, you would have a voice because you were a farmer and you provided food to your area. You had value. You have a voice. Today, all of that's been neutralized into fiat or money. And so our voice is carried by how much money we have. So if we are locked out of our money, if our money is trapped, or if our money can't be spent, then we lose a voice, or we lose our voice. Now, unfortunately, this is just how the world is evolving. It wasn't how it was 100 years ago, and that's why these concepts are very difficult to get. But the truth of the matter is if we can understand what the new economy reveres, and if we can understand what steps we need to take to integrate into the new economy, then we will have a voice, we will have power, and we will have value, and we will have a means to share it. If we feed the wrong types of networks that capture people's value, that lock them away from their money, that overfee them, or that shut down so they can't get access to their money, is that a good thing for our future? We probably should be looking at blockchain networks from a different lens. And instead of saying, hey, what business can I build on it, or how can I monetize on it, how do I perpetuate a network that allows us to maintain all of our freedoms? Because after all, this is money, not a business.
But you don't put all your, I mean, any financial analyst, their soul is
Right.
diversify,
Sure.
right?
But what are you diversifying in? So let's consider the meaning of diversify, because you are correct in that statement. Any financial advisor would say diversify. When he says the word diversify, in his mind he is saying diversify, spread your money around an entire market. Why? Because money moves and fluctuates within this market, and this market has been established by a government. Each entity is proven to a degree to be trusted. That does not apply in blockchain. You and I could run home and erect a chain and a website and look legit as heck in about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that means we can't do what you're saying. We have to use other metrics of measure to start to decide and support what networks will allow us to remain free. This is the scariest thing I've ever found in my life, that we have all of these chains out, 1 million of them now.
1 million?
1 million chains.
coins.
1 million different chains, and each chain has millions of coins. They're all making promises. They're all saying they're going to do something. And I see it as like the snake oil salesman standing there with his cart going, hey, because here's what I know. I'm following the money. And the money is moving into Bitcoin and any network that can support Bitcoin. So all of these million networks that are promising this, that, or the other, where will they be in 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. But I think they're about to steal a lot of people's lifespan. And I say steal a lot of people's lifespan because in my belief system, I believe that the only thing you have of any value is your lifespan.
Yeah.
You get one of it, your time. And so if you leave your family, your fun, your love to go work, and they give you money that represents the time that you spent there, why would you tolerate that money shrinking in value over time? That's literally stealing your life.
Yeah.
So inflation is a way of stealing your lifespan slowly over time. Now there's a reverse. You can buy fixed supply assets that grow in value that can't be debased, and as money migrates in, your value goes up, and that way you expand your life. You expand the quality of it, and you expand the value. Networks that lock your money, networks that fee you unfairly and unreasonably, networks that have hacks or built in a hackable way, networks that are controlled by VCs and not the people with no voting, networks that have no fixed supply. These are dangerous for our future.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
so insurance is one of the things that you're talking about right there. Insurance companies do not care about us at all.
Oh, they're scams.
They want to take all of our money.
And they never want to give it back.
Never give any back, right?
Right. Medical is the worst.
Yeah, oh, it's horrible.
I'm 25 years in medicine, guys. And so if you want to talk to me about insurance companies, we can have a great discussion about how I believe they should all be shut down. Because they don't do anything for the people. There should be queues that people have their own money and they feed that queue, and that queue is available for them when they need it.
Socialized medicine is not good either, right?
But socialized medicine works. But here's the problem with all systems.
It works
Yeah.
while you're young. While you have,
While you don't expense the system.
While some actuary will say, hey, okay, so-and-so, Chris, he's 25, he broke his arm, who cares how, right? He has another 50 years of life. Yes, you should fix his arm right away. But what happens when I'm 65? And I've heard this
Let it
story
sit.
twice in my lifetime. where there's been an old lady living in England, fell down, broke her arm. You could see
It's crooked.
You could see her arm was broken. And they would not, they said, we'll see you next month. They didn't set her arm, they didn't do anything.
Yep.
And those are instances, because now you have an actuary somewhere who's putting value on that person's life, whether or not, how much time it would take.
It's worth to fix them.
Exactly.
And that's a problem.
So
That
that's
is an
the
uneven
opposite-
system. Yeah.
Equal and opposite issue with socialized healthcare. The same thing goes in Canada too. Oh, we have hey, how long does it take to see a doctor?
Yeah, months, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Ask me right now, because I've been seeing doctors since January, right? How long does it take for me to figure out if I can see a doctor? I can see a doctor tomorrow if I wanted to. For any specialization, my insurance might not cover it though.
True.
And so,
If you go through insurance out here, it's taking them like 6 months
Forever.
to book an appointment.
Right. And it's terrible. And so you're not going to, the problem is the system's broken, but why is the system broken becomes the question. So why are these delays here? And what's going on that slows down this process? And it's the humans in the mix. There are certain systems that can now be automated and streamlined with blockchain. And the reason they weren't before was because they were carrying sensitive, critical, private data.
PII.
Now, we can take that PII, we can put it on blockchain, we can autonomize the actions, and we can eliminate all the bulk of expense and delay of these types of systems, and there's no greedy person at the end saying, we don't want to pay them back because we want that money. We have a Christmas party coming, and any profits we got go to the Christmas party. That's what's happening with that money. It's being used within that system inappropriately. It's going to bonuses and cars, you know that. But my point is if we remove that infrastructure and recreate the blockchain infrastructure for insurance, let's say, you could quite literally return all the profits back to the people, eliminate the sub-layer infrastructure, the cost of the humans to be there, and have a better system employed. This is coming. We have people building networks that will house DAOs and run insurance, and all the people keep all their money. Sorry, what was your question?
So one concept that I've read about is like a black box for your personal data.
Sure.
Where you can, I think it's with like a personal key, you can release certain information to certain entities. Can you talk about that a little bit?
This network has that's programmable tokens.
Yeah.
And so what you can do is you can actually create a token, let's say it's an identity token, and you can put segments of data in that token, and each segment can be unlocked individually. And so let's say one of those segments was your medical data. And so your doctor can call you and you can hold up a QR, it'll say James medical data, and he will scan that QR and he'll get all of your medical data, nothing else. He won't get any of your metrics, nothing that he doesn't need. Same with 21 and over. This is Vegas. Why aren't we using NFTs as identifiers for at least 21 and over? Think about this. We go to the city, we say, look, we're gonna have everybody take their ID, and with their ID, if they're 21, we're gonna mint them a 21 and over pass. They can only carry it and it's authenticated with their ID somehow, whatever. So they go and they show that they're over 21. They're no longer giving their name, their address, their age, whether they're 25 or 30.
I don't.
Just 21, you get to come in.
From a cybersecurity standpoint, right? That puts the information into something I have, right?
Encrypted.
Encrypted, sure, but it's something I have.
At home, in the cloud. Let's see.
In the cloud, right? So if it's QR, it's still something I have. That only covers one layer. There should be
Shifting QRs.
right.
Shifting every 5 seconds.
It's still something I have, right? You have to have a second layer.
Sure.
Something I know, right? So basically, you don't just show up and say, "Hey, I have a thing."
Right.
Now I can give it to a mod. The mod can say, "Hey, I'm this guy."
Exactly. So you would,
have to
you
make
could confirm
I-
something, yeah.
You have to have two layer everybody.
Everybody.
Something everywhere, right? But everything every piece of software you have to have two things, right?
Yeah, two-factor auth.
Two-factor authentication.
Yeah, and you know,
something you have, or something else. I can't remember.
Something
On
else.
top of his question,
Yeah.
or on top of his comment, is it less secure having different segments of your data housed together in that black box scenario, even though they have separate QRs or however you would be able to access them? Would you be able to essentially hack one person and get access to all of the information, or
We have-
how does that encryption work?
We have to consider the arena that you're in. You easily use the word hack. When we start to put things on blockchain, and they're in the SHA-256 hash encryption environment, there's no hacking.
Which will be cracked at some point.
Yeah. Well, then we go to 512. And then we get an exponential increase of difficulty. Then we go to 1024, and then we go.
NIST is what should we look up SHA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is how you hash things,
Right.
How you encrypt things. SHA-256 has been around for
30 years, 40 years?
not that long.
Let's see. Let's check.
But it's been around for a while. But eventually somebody's going to break it, right?
Yeah.
And when it gets broken, 512 will come out probably tomorrow.
Right.
The problem is that 256 takes a certain amount of processing power, right? And actual, like, space on a hard disk somewhere. So once you start going through the high ones, you get more and more, like, you know, and it takes longer to ship it around.
25 years.
25 years.
25 years. I think it was around 30. So 2001.
I had my sec class, I had to study all my stuff, so it's been a while.
Yeah, it's old stuff. But yeah, you're right. And so there's a weight to it. But we also have to consider over time compute is getting faster. And so as the weight increases for the security, our compute will go faster. And moving to 512 most likely will be a simple click of a switch or a hard fork combinator event, and all of a sudden our security is more robust. And it'll probably take another 100 years to break it of development. And the thing that scares me...
Going to 512.
Oh, it's an exponential scale.
Yeah.
Well, you're going from 256 characters to 512 characters of encryption. So every single character adds a crazy amount of difficulty, and you just doubled it. And so it becomes another impossible layer to break.
Bigger computers.
Right, and faster. It's always this cat and mouse game, and this is game theory in itself. The encryption is always getting stronger, and the hackers are always getting faster, and it's game theory.
Hardware is always getting
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, and so you're always like fighting with these to kind of keep things in scale. And I think blockchain is natively a very good way to go anyway, because even if you were to run a compiler that were to run combinations like this, I think the mathematical estimation is you'd have to run 1 trillion queries per second until the end of time to mathematically compute one wallet. So
Again, blockchain for me,
it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
blockchain for me is
So hacking, like I said, is not going to.
right?
Sorry, what?
Blockchain presents your prominence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Finance, you can say, hey, I paid for this at this specific block and chain, and this is how much it's worth, right?
Right.
And now I'm going to transfer that to my son, right? And he is the next owner of the chain, and he owns that. And maybe this is where I don't understand it as much. Like, I don't have that chain anymore. Like, I own that previous block, but now you own the next block.
Right.
So now there's the prominence of you to me, to the person who owned it before me, and so on to the beginning of that blockchain, which I really personally like, because now I can deliver a product to somebody, whatever it might be.
Some people's privacy.
Yeah, and you can see the prominence, right? Which is huge, right? So now think about, okay, I want to consume data from an endpoint, and I want to make sure that prominence is the right, it wasn't messed with between me calling that API and getting the data, right? So for finance, right, okay, from a security standpoint, I would think of like, okay, I want to know how much something is worth at some point in time. How much is my I don't know. I might be losing it here, so I can let you
No worries. No worries. No, you got it.
How much is my retirement fund worth, my 401k, and my diversification within the 401k, right? And I'm getting that information back, and some crazy person hacker in the middle is like, haha, I got you. Now I have your login information, and I'm going to start draining your funds. Not all at once, but just a little bit at a time.
Slowly so you don't notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hack. So in blockchain, we would be hard pressed to see that exist, because you're just not going to bust through the SHA-256 hash encryption, which means if you hold your stuff in a black box on the blockchain, that's what the black box is, the blockchain, because you're not going to penetrate that token. If you could have, trust me, they weren't going to go for your medical data. They'd go for the 96 million in Satoshi's wallet that's publicly listed right now under a hardware wallet. So what's really neat about blockchain is there's a public token of authenticity, whether it's secure or not. The first thing to get hacked is going to be that thing.
Yeah.
So if that goes down, what's really interesting is you probably have a year or two before your wallet would be seen or found or hacked. Even if it ever was, you would simply migrate out into something else, right? But so hacking, I wouldn't even, in this world, what we're doing now, all this stuff, hack every day. But once you move that data onto blockchain and you encrypt it, it's a different state. It's quite literally in a different dimension where people just don't have the tools to get into it, and not yet anyway. So I would say holding medical data, having an identity, having a credential, having all those things on blockchain would probably be far better than our current system now. And what we're doing is we're weighing what's good, better, best, right?
Yeah.
And so we're in good, but there's better and then there's best.
From the standpoint of like, okay, I have a block of my PII, right? And then I show it to my doctor. Now he downloads that chain and he owns the next block, right? And now there's a provenance.
Oh, actually, it's a viewing. So
Okay.
what's really neat about this is you can ghost deliver. So on this network, on Cardano, you can actually deliver a token with a timestamp on it, and when the timestamp executes, it pulls itself back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's got time to live.
It's got a time to live. So what you can do is you can give a doctor your medical information for a study for a month. And after that month, that data, he no longer has access anymore. And so yeah.
The data is delivered over the internet to him.
Mm-hmm. In an encrypted? Yeah, it's encrypted so he can view it. And then after the encryption's over. Now this doesn't, people are like, well, that's not secure. It doesn't really matter because he could just copy the screen and take it. Yeah, he could. But for any legitimate.
So he can take it down, he can bring it down.
Yeah.
And,
Use it for his studies.
but he still has, does he have his own block?
No, he does not have the token.
Block?
Yeah, he has temporary access to the data.
To the
Just like
specific
Netflix.
block in the chain.
Yeah, think about it. Like you pay a subscription to Netflix, you have access to Netflix. So you've authenticated this user to view this data for so much time, and you can even revoke it. It's 10 days before, but you found out he's doing something, revoke, and now he doesn't have access anymore.
So is there, I guess here's my real question.
Mhm.
Is there, what's the best resource on the internet for me to go research about blockchain,
Mhm.
right? And not get like waylaid by Bitcoin or like building my own, crypto farm or whatever
Right.
it might. I just want to
The
understand
utility of it, I would go to,
the actual how to use it.
yeah, how to use it. Well, so that's what I do for my boot camps.
Okay.
So you meet with me, we build you a private wallet. I show you the infrastructure. If you're savvy enough and you want to build your own private infrastructure, we'll help you build that. But most people like to piggyback off of my infrastructure because it's already built. So you don't give the money over. We have to teach you how the network works so you understand it. But you build private wallets, you link them onto the blockchain through me. But you still have your wallet, you still have your money. I don't have it, it's not locked. I don't even know you're there. But that's the way the network works. They built these mechanisms with all of these holes in it, 620 million holes in each one. And anybody can port into a hole and connect into the network without you knowing. And that was the way that they divided mining, because we felt that the distribution of value through mining was unfair. It created a class, a group that received all the money first, and then they sold off until it finally matriculated down to us. That wasn't a fair distribution. So how do you make the validation on blockchain fair? You give it to everybody. So every single person that holds a wallet and holds value gets paid off of that value, just like a bank account. But the reason they're getting paid isn't just because, thank you, here's your interest. They're actually getting paid because the token is doing utility on the network and validating transactions. And the network has an agreement. If any token is doing work, it gets paid every 5 days. And so in properly built symbiotic structured networks, what we see is the collaboration of everybody doing different things yields value for everybody. Whereas on some networks, just a few make all the money and then they sell it and then it does this trickle-down effect. Well, that trickle-down effect has been shown throughout history to create power classes. Okay? It's not actually a true capitalistic system. It's actually a control system. This is a true capitalistic system. The more value you hold, the more value you get, and there's no third party getting in the way of you creating that volume or increasing that value. You guys, blockchain is probably one of the most complex and intricate things, and like I said, the nuances go in every direction. But here's what I found over my research of 6,000 years of economic history and governments. Fixed supply assets reign supreme over time. I'm not saying novelty doesn't show its face and smile at everybody really big, but novelty will disappear.
Yeah.
And when novelty disappears, hard money will exist. And when the hard money exists, that's when everybody will start to utilize it. So here's what we're looking at. We're looking at a big game of a whole bunch of soft money being put out, 1 million different blockchains. But what's really happening government-wise, nation-state-wise, continentally, only certain blockchains are being integrated for real use. So how do you know which ones? It's really simple. You go to the governments and you say, what blockchain are you guys integrating? So if you go to Swiss, you'll see that the Swiss, Germany, Russia, China, and America are all integrating Cardano right now.
What is it?
Cardano. They're all integrating Cardano. 8 months ago, the Swiss stock exchange added Cardano on their ticker. Nobody even knew about it. They just released their governance model for voting so everybody can have a voice on the blockchain, because why do blockchains fail? They can't steer them. And so you have a group of developers, 12 guys, that keep choosing where the chain's going to go, but you don't get the populace vote. On Cardano, there is a governance system by the name of Voltaire. We've been training on it for the past 2-3 years. You vote on Cardano for funds distribution. So networks that will reign supreme and rise and continue to grow will be networks that have good communication, high security, reliability, they're decentralized, and they are free to the person that uses it. They don't control, trap, or maim their money while it's in that custody. Cardano seems to be doing this. They tout self-custody, okay, with yield. Now you guys are drawing blank faces. Hello. Tell me where on the planet you can hold your own money and grow it. Seriously, think about it for a second. Can you hold Bitcoin and tomorrow you come back and have another Bitcoin? No, you can grow your Bitcoin by the value of the network, but you don't have a multiplier. Cardano has a multiplier.
Only if you're mining your own.
Yeah, but if you're mining, it's an unfair distribution because you have to do the mining farms, you have to spend money for the miner. Not everybody can do that, so that's an unfair distribution, right?
Yeah, I looked at it and it wasn't worth it.
No, it's not worth it, and because you get like 1 in a million chance now because of all the mining farms, and so you're not going to hit. So it's an unfair distribution, guys. So we should be looking for fair distribution. We should be looking for mechanisms that are more symbiotic than monopolistic, and ones that actually make you happy when you use them. Ones that are not locking your money, that are giving you interest, yield, and growth potential, right? Because you want to earn interest, but you also want your value to grow. So how is your value going to grow? Well, it's only going to grow in fixed supply asset classes, because if you don't have a fixed supply, they can just keep debasing it. They can just mint more, print more, burn more, and they can manipulate that value. So Ethereum should have been declining a ton, but they were burning tokens for a year. And so instead of the price dropping, it just sat there because they were diminishing the supply. And nobody even understands that. And then they say, okay, bull market's coming. Okay, we're going to stop burning. Now we're going to start minting. And they're minting while people are buying, and then they get that rise. These are manipulations of money. We should not be entertaining business on these environments, you guys. We should not be entertaining business on these environments. So once we figure out what hard and real money is on true, honest, and decentralized networks, those are the ones we should be building on. Whatever idea you have, whatever thing you want to do, start with an ethos. Start with morals and values and say, I'm going to do this better than our predecessors. I don't need to steal a dollar from everybody, but I would love to help everybody secure their money, and they'll thank me for that. They'll pay me for that, because people will. Good people will. And so this isn't really about blockchain and learning about blockchain so you can use it for business. This is about understanding why blockchain is here, the messages that they've been sending, the reasons why they're doing it, and how we can act to protect ourselves in the future. Yeah.
Maybe you keep talking about money, right?
Sure.
So like how
It's just a common word that people understand as value. Yeah.
For me, it's more for like understanding the provenance of data.
Sure.
And so as a software engineer, like I'm thinking like, okay, I'm consuming data for if I'm going to like plan the flight of an aircraft,
Mhm.
a Boeing from LA to
New York.
Georgia,
Okay.
right? Or New York, right? And so I need to plan a flight. I need several pieces of information to do
Mhm.
that, right? I need weather information.
Right.
I need wind and that weather information. I need
Distance, fuel.
distance.
Yeah.
I need to know what the airport looks like. I need to know terminal procedures to get there. I need to be able to, know the wind resistance of my aircraft based on how many people are on it, how much cargo am I holding, right? There's all this information that pilots are responsible for, right? And
Mhm.
so like a lot of times like a lot of that information is in that pilot's head, right? Which is cool. Like
Mhm.
that's why they get paid a lot of money, not as much as they should in my opinion, but whatever,
Mhm.
that's a whole other discussion. But like there's a lot of information that they depend on, right? And so for that specific use case, to have the provenance, a pedigree of data that they're consuming is very important, right?
Mhm.
It's important to us because we use them.
Sure.
We're on those aircraft, right? So
Very important.
I would love to know that yes, he received this data
On the wind and then the runway length, and yeah.
like from a very trustable source,
Mhm.
right? And
But you don't need to know that.
I don't need to know
Yeah.
that, but I would love to.
Yeah.
It would
Right.
make me more comfortable in understanding that, right?
Sure.
I know that I could hack it in between and before it gets sent to him and do whatever I wanted to with it, right?
Right,
And
true.
So that's why that's just one example, right? And I could probably come up, if I thought hard, I could come up with another example or two, three. And if I kept thinking, I'd probably come
Sure.
up
Because they exist everywhere.
with hundreds.
Right.
It's the prominence and your pedigree, right? That you're consuming things of which you're doing something bigger.
Right.
But what you're talking about is money, right? Which is important.
Actually, if we want to go to the core, just so we're clear on what I'm talking about our voice.
Okay, sorry.
So to be very clear, and what I defined earlier in the discussion was our voice these days in a technological world is represented by money. Okay, because if you don't have any value, how much are you heard in these days and age?
Yeah.
If you're a bum on the street, can you buy food? Can you get medical help? You get meager, right? But you don't really, nobody's going to hear you, and the system isn't really designed in your current state to support you. If you're mentally healthier, yeah, the system can help you. But if you're,
Well,
yeah,
let's agree. Let's agree to say mental health is a giant stigma in
Sure.
all societies
Yeah.
in the world, right?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, but how do you change that? Right?
you can't.
That's a whole-
It's an existing demographic that will always exist, just like there's a group of people that want to kill the earth, there's a group of people that want to be hippies, there's a group of people that want to be crazy and watch football. You're always going to have them.
But mental,
Yeah.
there's so many people who are dealing and living with mental illnesses
Sure.
today who are productive.
Sure.
But, it's hard. You can't just say everybody that's a homeless person.
Yeah, it's just an example. But you don't have a voice when you don't have money. Yeah. Yeah, true. If you don't have money, you don't have a voice, is my point. And so when I talk about money or value, I'm not necessarily talking about a dollar. I'm talking about the value that you've accumulated, which is your right to spend or use in the future as you see fit, having control of that value and having the ability to use that value. Now, we call that value money in most cases, but it could be many other things. Yeah.
So how do you? This is a really interesting conversation.
I love it, buddy.
like
Yeah,
right?
it's cool.
I don't want to sound like I'm being like.
Please, I love this because you sharpen me and I hopefully educate you. So, yeah.
The value. How do you measure the value of a person, right?
Okay.
One of them, like I said earlier, like
Right.
an actuary might measure the value of somebody's age, right?
Right?
The second, one of the it's a multifaceted problem, right?
Sure.
The value of a person can be how much money I have, my net worth of
Sure.
cash, right? And how much I make a year. It's all those things that come into it. But the value of a person is also involving the value of what I want to do with my life.
Sure.
So how do I want to spend it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe my value for myself is sitting on a curb asking people for money, and that's valuable to me.
That's your value, yeah.
Right.
Right.
But how do you measure it? It's relative. It's
Here's the problem. It is relative, and the answer isn't to figure out how to value everybody. And the answer isn't for us to create awareness of, okay, we're going to start valuing everybody fairly. That's never going to happen, as you know.
No.
But the truth is in this world currently, we value people by money. And it's not, I'm not saying it's the good way, and I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's moral, but if you have money, you are treated differently in this world. If you have a lot of money, you are allowed to do whatever you want in this world to a lot of degrees. And we can talk about those things slowly changing socially with, we hear about these pop stars doing crazy radical things, and now they're kind of being called out.
No
Right.
value in what they say or do.
Me either. But you're not the norm, and I think you would agree with me as far as the general populace. I would agree us three in this room are probably not the norm.
I have no idea what the general populace is.
Correct. But whatever it is, they're not doing this. How do I know that? They're not in this room. We are not the norms of the general populace. Those guys are watching football. They're filling arenas. They're having other fun, and they're thinking differently than we do.
That stuff is fun too.
And that is great. Yeah, that's great. My point is that we're not going to fairly ever evaluate people, but we have to understand how this system works. And this system currently values people by their money. I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it should stay that way. But I've walked into some pretty fancy restaurants, and if I look a certain way, I'm treated a certain way. And if I look a certain way, I'm treated a certain way. So
Okay, I would also argue that
Sure.
if you walk into a fancy restaurant, reverence isn't the right word, but a certain etiquette is required.
100%.
So if you walk in and it's a restaurant that requires
A suit and
sports
tie?
coat,
Mhm.
and you walk in without a sports coat,
They're going to say you can't go in.
Get treated differently. Right?
So how much money do you have to afford a sports coat?
I get my first one,
Mhm.
Goodwill. I think I probably paid $5.
My point is that the demographic is there.
It's $30 to get it tailored, and amazing.
I'll bet.
That was also 20 years ago.
That's awesome. Well, my point is that money treats people differently. So if you were the type that didn't know about a sports coat, didn't have a sports coat, you wouldn't be served. Money is your voice here, guys. Money is your voice. And I'm not, like I said, you've got to understand, I'm not saying it's a good thing. In fact, I probably think it's the worst way to generate an opinion about somebody. But it is the simplest, most honest, easy way that we do in this current society. And I didn't make the rule. If I were to make it, I wouldn't make it off of money. But people have, and if they have, and that's the way it works, and we know that this is our voice, then it makes sense that we hold on to the hardest money and support networks that allow us to flex our voice when we see fit. So on certain networks, they lock your money down for 2 years. So can you speak inside of those 2 years with your value? No, it's locked. So you've lost your voice for 2 years. In certain networks, you can't grow your wealth. So you can buy it, but ultimately you have to sell the valuable asset to recoup the value. It doesn't really make sense either.
So it's like a CD in some sense.
Kind of, but it's not government guaranteed. So this is the problem. The whole reason you accept the whole concept of CD is because established by government, verified, guaranteed, trust. This is a global network. Like I said, us three could get together, whoop up a blockchain, and have a website up in a couple hours, and we could look legit. Yeah. So we cannot use the same rules in an environment that was graded and vetted. We can't take those same rules and logic and apply them to a global system that's never been vetted and is unverified. And that's what the biggest problem is. People are saying, I'm walking the same steps. I'm just going to walk here in blockchain, and they're getting crushed because they're sending money happily. They're letting it get locked up happily. They're buying things of no value because they never understood the basics. This is not a game. It's not a new trading market.
Yeah.
It's not a new trading market,
And
you
when I first
guys.
heard about it, I definitely just like jumped in, started trading,
Yeah.
bought a couple things.
Did you learn it wasn't a trading market?
I only put a couple $100 and
Yeah.
like after 2 years, when it didn't gain any value, then I said,
Scam.
all right, let me actually study it and learn what I'm doing.
Very, very good. So I'm probably saying a lot of things you already know,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. So,
Sorry,
Yeah.
I've done a lot with it. I just know like the technology, the way it was explained to me when it first came out.
mhm.
And then anytime I try and look at something, and it's so, from a technological standpoint, it's hard to find anything that, for me, to understand it and use it.
Dude, get on a Zoom with me, man. I've got some pretty cool whiteboards that I could break down how the tech can integrate and why it's better. Because as soon as I can get a guy like you to understand it, then I can get you over to the docs. I can get you over to Git. And then I can get you pulling down stuff and creating stuff. And that's when it's going to matter. Because once you can make something that'll help people store their money or preserve their money or validate if something's a scam, not only are you doing something good for society, you're making money. And now you're really into blockchain by creating that utility. So
Yeah.
get with me. We're going to get you on the docs, and I'm going to show you how we can get some tools up and running so you can kind of run with it. And like I said, my biggest goal here, guys, is not to teach you guys about blockchain and all that stuff. I really want you to understand why it's here. Because if you understand why it's here, hopefully you switch tracks, and instead of looking at it as a business opportunity to make money, you look at it as an opportunity to proliferate freedom. You're probably going to make money, but you're going to do it in a way that proliferates and allows us to maintain our freedoms over the future.
Anytime you're doing something that makes other people look good or feel happy, generally
It's going to do better. And that's true. And so this is what we're doing. I'm sincerely here on my own time. I don't charge. Seriously, when we hang out, we're going to hang out for 4 or 5 hours. I'm just going to kick back. There's no charge.
You're serious.
Yeah, I'm serious.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. So I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to show you the infrastructure that I built. I'll show you the documents on how you can duplicate it. I'll show you how it works. And then I'll teach you guys about why these types of fixed supply assets are way more valuable than all the junk that you're seeing everywhere else. You have to accept the fact that there's definitely people that don't want free money out in the world. Let's just be honest. There's people that are like, free money is probably not so good for my business. And so they're definitely putting out some very interesting information. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been out here for a long time, 12 years. And I remember sitting in the hospital watching the news, and I'm doing my research, and I'm seeing everything green, and I'm looking up at the news, and everything's red. And I'm like, this is reality. What is this? And I sat there for years going, why are they literally saying the opposite of what's happening here? And I realized they probably are being sold a narrative, and they're pushing this out for a reason. And if the reason is they don't want free money, then I need to make sure I get as much free money as I can get.
Yeah.
So
It's complicated.
it is complicated.
So that anytime you get something that's a little complicated, people try to dumb it down so that everybody can understand it. And that's where the problem happens.
Right, because then you lose the nuance.
Yeah.
Because the nuances in all of these other networks that have come out to trick you, they look and rhyme exactly the same, and so you would think it's all the same. Just get to pick it.
Peter Pan, by the way? Did you use Peter Pan?
Peter Pan?
Or what was it called? Piper?
Pied Piper. That's what it was. Pied Piper. Oh, wow, that was way long ago. Oh my gosh, that's old school. That's funny. But no, there's tons of junk. In fact, if I were to do a mathematical calculation of the percentage of quality versus real, I'd say 98% of it is a scam. 98% of the million is a scam. Now, what's interesting is if you were here for the first bull market, your chance of picking a winner was 1 in 100. And by the end of the bull market, it was 1 in 1,000. And then second bull market, it was 1 in 100,000. And now this bull market, it's 1 in a million. So now the truth is so diluted, it's much harder for people to pick Bitcoin, which is the real value store, and maybe a utility network like Cardano that's going to use that value, versus every other meme coin that's dropping. Trump coin. Our president scammed the populace. He made a Trump coin, peeked it out, and then sold it off. He might utilitize it later, you never know. But even he doesn't understand what's happening here, which is terrifying. But the funny thing is the rest of the world does. America doesn't have to understand the needs of the rest of the world. The rest of the world is going to pull utility in. And that's really what's going to happen. So anyway, This was really fun, guys, hanging out, chatting about this, all this theory and stuff. Yeah, Cardano. Check it out, and I would love for you to find me another place where you can keep your money liquid, earn yield every 5 days, no striking, no hacking, no negatives, because that's Cardano. And I've been trying to find another place where I could store money where nobody can strike it or hack it or anything. Cardano's the only one. Everybody else says, yeah, we can stake. Just send your money to here for 90 days, or send your money here for 2 years. Oh, are you vetted with the U.S. government? No. Why am I going to send you my money? It's cool, man. Just send me the money. No. Sorry.
What's the safest way to build a wallet and to actually store the value as opposed to like just being on an exchange? Because I read something, I didn't go into deep detail about it, about Coinbase was hacked. I think it was this week or in the last month or so.
Sure.
And a lot of people lost value in there.
Yeah, so I don't know about Coinbase getting hacked and the value loss, but I do know this. A Coinbase wallet is not a self-custody wallet. It's a Coinbase wallet, owned and controlled by Coinbase. And they have all the same infrastructure and business aptitude that causes them to get hacked just like your bank. Okay, so it's the same mechanism. This is not blockchain. If you're buying assets and you're leaving it on a third party, you're just recreating our old system, right? You get your paycheck, you give it to a bank. Same thing, just different person. Blockchain is really done when you create and construct a private blockchain wallet connected to no entity. That means you go onto the blockchain, you start the encryption process, it creates a hash, you build a secret private wallet that nobody is aware of. Nobody. And then once you validate that wallet, so you look at the first, you can look at the first receive address and then destroy the wallet and recreate it. If you get the first receive address again, it's the same wallet. Or you can throw $5 in the wallet, destroy it. If the $5 comes back, it's the same wallet. And once you've destroyed the wallet, built 3 backups, and you have a hardware device employed, guess what? You go into that wallet, you tweak it with a little bit of code, it starts generating yield, and you start packing it with money, and it makes deposits every 5 days, and it scales. So as the network scales, and blockchain scales about 200% per year, year over year, 5 years is where it usually adds up, right? So 200% growth. So if you had $100,000, in 5 years you'd have $1 million, and you'd be making 2.5% on $1 million. And in 10 years, you have 100 million and you're making 2.5 on 100 million privately. Privately. So all you have to do is think ahead, see where the money is moving, set up your infrastructure, and wait. And I've been getting wealthier every year. Went on 3 vacations this year. But 4 years ago, before the cycle, they weren't producing enough for me to go on vacation, but I got to ditch my job. Now this year, I had everything for my income, everything for spending, plus I had 40,000 extra for vacation fund. And that was me doing nothing. It's just the growth of the networks. So you guys have to understand, you need to look at it a long term. We're at the very beginning of a race that the migration is going to take about 25, 30 years.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be that long?
I don't, but that's the initial estimations based off of growth. I imagine I'll be rechecking that number every 5 years, and it might truncate due to AI. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the initial was 25 to 30. And I was like, $400 trillion. That sounds like it would take that long to move that much money. But with blockchain, gosh, it could be overnight. It really could. So I don't know for sure, but that was the first estimated guess. Yeah. But that was what I thought too.
Yeah.
I was like, wouldn't it be faster?
And I was definitely thinking, you said it with AI, that
it would speed it up.
Yeah.
So AI, when I was first looking at this metric 12 years ago, when they said, "Oh, this is starting. This is the beginning of this migration. We'll devalue one and value the other," and I saw the chart and everything. It showed the dollar going down and Bitcoin going up, and I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." And they said, "Yeah, it's going to be a migration. This migration estimated throughout history, over 500 years, a sample of a shift from one currency to another, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, we shift currencies every 150 to 200 years. We don't live to be 100, so it's very hard for us to actually witness it, but we're witnessing one now. And so we're here to witness a shift from one currency to another, and the migration is much larger than before, so we're moving 400 trillion from one space to another, 400 trillion, they were estimating probably a 20-year migration. So because infrastructure has to be built, people have to research, people have to apply, they have to vote. Businesses are lining up every day right now and getting their boards ready to vote so if they can bring Bitcoin on their balance sheets. You can't just do it as a business overnight. You actually have to address these things, you have to vote on these things, discuss them, research them. So there's this tail of dominoes that's slowly following, and it accelerates the growth of Bitcoin. And the volume gets pretty large. 20 trillion, I think, is the estimate this year.
And grow.
20 trillion. The current market's only 3.7, which means the whole market is going to multiply. And that's not like a buddy is like, hey, I think this investment firm allocated this much money, they voted, they're putting the money in, and all of these ones did, and it equals $20 trillion. So this money is moving into this market this year, which is going to cause Bitcoin to go to 180,000. So, or 220, we'll see. Anyway, so this is all the time I have, guys. Get my card. I'd love to continue the conversation with you guys a little bit, and then I'd love to get you to the docs, show you the tools that are out there, and then maybe let you guys run with some cool ideas.
Sure.
But the important thing is the ethos. We really want to start to create projects and things that help people. There's enough of people out there trying to strip money from people. It's time that we build something that really helps us and our kids and the future. So thanks for coming. Thanks for chatting with you. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, thanks.